the audit objectives, again, are these 5 that we talked about. And what I wanted to do is start to drill down a little bit deeper into those audit objectives. So the way the revenue test set was set up, and how you will be getting a sample of the revenue test set that has all this information. So even though we have it in our slides here today, we also will be talking about it as a PDF document. And it starts out with those 5 primary audit objectives, and then that leads to 67 questions that I've laid out for you to audit against. And these questions then relate to 32 ACL batches, which again, I'm sorry to say, I think you may get about 10 or 8 to 10 or so of those. And we do have some menus as well, but we'll kind of leave that part out. I think the key here is that you notice here we have 67 questions. However, we have 32 batches, so there is a bit of a gap there. And therefore, some of the procedures require inquiry. So, things like, is there segregation of duties between those entering and, and the accounts receivable life cycle? I guess you could do a test of that if you really wanted to, using segregation of duty type tools. However, inquiry and observation tends to be a quick one there. Another one is a lockbox used to receive cash receipts is another example. Once again, something you normally ask and then get some documentation on. Are checks received stored in a safe place prior to depositing? You probably have to observe that versus looking at the computer. But I don't think it's a bad idea to list all these questions down, and we really tried our best here to throw a lot of those questions into the test set. I'm not going to spend that much more time on this, but did want to note that not everything can be tested using the computer. However, and these are the tests that we are going to talk about today, these are the tests that you can take a look for, and we've tried to line them up, to the 5 audit objectives that we talked about before. Is it authorized? Are we efficient and effective? Is it accurate, complete, etc. And the tests that we're going to do, first off, the first one there at least, is the date difference test, where we're going to take a look at the timely invoicing of orders, which gets more to how much interest are we losing because we're not invoicing orders on a timely basis. Next off, we're going to be taking a look at customer trends, and this kind of gets to some authorization from a pricing point of view, so the price variance there and the price approval type analysis, but also the customer trends. I mean, it gets to identify some customers that fall out from a this year to last year perspective and might identify an unauthorized situation. I guess arguably you could take that test and also align it to, is it complete or accurate as well, the customer trends test. But again, we've dropped it into this authorizing for now. Are transactions accurate, complete? We have the overbilled orders, where we have invoices or quantity that are exceeding the actual order quantity. And then this one I like is the last period test analysis, where we actually take a look at the last period of time and relate that back to the first 3 quarters, or whatever you're doing. I mean, you could look at 11 months in relation to 1 month if you'd like, or whatever, 9 months in relation to 3 months. But that's what the cut test does. Last but not least, the age change. I like this one as well. It was I identified this at a organization and felt it was good to put into the revenue test set. What we're looking for here is where you identify situations where you have a old invoice that ends up getting credited or taken off the books, and then magically appears as a new invoice. So all we're doing here is we're taking old invoices that will kind of show up to an auditor, and someone will start asking, why is that 360 days old? We credit it off, and then we put that in as a new current invoice, so then no one knows the difference. And this test will kind of look for that credit debit activity over a changing time frame. Now, in order to get these tests done, we need to get ready and get some data. And getting data and getting ready for that, we're going to talk about how some of these test set tools can help, and we're going to jump into Excel in a second here. But one of the tools that you'll get in addition to the ACL files and scripts is a Excel spreadsheet. And this Excel spreadsheet will line up for you, as you can see here, the actual tables that you'll need. We're going to take a quick look at these in ACL, but as you can see here, for say customer interests, this is the first test that we're looking at here. That customer interest test will have various fields that we need to get the test done: invoice amount, customer name, number, date, etc. And however, if you're doing, say, a customer master file to employee master file test, those tables are also listed in this Excel spreadsheet, but they're out to the right. And again, what I did was, even though I didn't give you all of these scripts that are listed here, I have given you this mapping so that you can get an idea of all of the different tables that you'll need for your revenue analysis. Again, we're going to talk about these tables just in a minute as when we go into ACL and take a look at that there. So let's go to the next slide. So, and the other thing I wanted to note as I'm kind of talking more generally here about some of the things we should be considering is don't forget about your financial statement indicators. And I tried to go through, and this is based on many books out there. A very good book out there, though, is called Financial Shenanigans, and you can buy others though and take a look at others. But this gives you a pretty good sampling of the types of ratios that are going up or down, depending on whether or not there is fraud, and more specifically fraud related to revenue. Do we have an increased current or quick ratio which relates to accounts receivable going up or working capital? And another one that I like is the increased days sales outstanding. So and therefore decreased receivable turnover. So what happens there is you get sales that are entered on the books that get very old because they're not real customers, and they're never going to get paid. Therefore, things like the increase in allowance for doubtful accounts would also jump up as well. Increase in receivable to sales will jump up as well. Decrease in cash flow, because these are all revenue that really doesn't exist. So again, that's the financial statement indicators. And last but not least, before we jump into ACL, I wanted to give you an idea of the actual test set layout so that we can get an idea of how the test sets are laid out by, in this PDF document that you will be getting. And as you look at this, I tried to do, I kind of cut and paste from a few different pages just to get this to one page. But this particular test is we'll talk about in a second, and it's looking for the approved pricing and matching approved pricing to what you're actually charging the customer. And anything that's overpriced or summarizes it by overpricing and stratifies it and does all these cool things. But on the left, it's telling you what you're going to get, what files are needed, even though we have that in Excel for every test. We repeat that, and then the actual data files that will come out. From a layout point of view, we then have the script that you're going to run to get that to work. And then last but not least, I even tried to put some work in there on what do you do with the actual results. So, over approved prices should be reviewed to determine whether it's a particular customer or there's trends that could be identified. You might want to run this by salesperson as well as an example and see if there's a particular salesperson that's leading to a lot of these issues. Okay, let me jump into ACL real quickly here. And just to show you, let me just drag this over here, and we're just going to look at the various tables that we have for our discussion. There is the approved prices list, which we talked about, cash receipts, which are also very important and something you might want to align to your sales data. We have the customer master this year. This is an old one, say customer master from last year. An employee master file. I need to note we will not be doing all these tests today, but most of them. The invoice file, invoice file last year, and then a order and shipment file. That's, in my case, I've added them together. We kind of have the order quantity and the ship quantity there. I think in a lot of ways this is probably more so of a shipment file that has the order information put in there, but we did that for simplicity. And we then kind of have who has access to the system, and that's another file. So these are not all of these files will be used, but we will be using most of them today. So now would be a good time for me to jump right into Excel and just show you again what we talked about in the slide a second ago, but just show you how we can kind of cut over to the right here and see all of the tables that we talked about and a designation as to whether or not it shows up, or that data field and table shows up for these particular tests. So again, I think one of the ones we were looking at was the price approved item, which is in here, and for this item here we can take a look at for the particular sales orders, and there should be an approval file in here as well, and that approved price list as well, and what fields you'll need from that table as well. So again, this is a very useful tool, and hopefully by selecting the tests on the left, you can just do a data filter almost using your simple Excel, and by doing that data filter you can get to the tests you want and then figure out what data fields you need and make your data request from there.